Hi there folks, this is Travis Truman with Series 2 of Truth TV. Now today I'm going to do a video which is the first of many on the wrongly convicted and of course the wrongly demonized and punished criminals of various societies. Now in this video the featured victim is going to be this man here, Josef Fritzl of Austria. Now, of course, many of you right off the bat will think that's some kind of sick or unjustifiable stance, but it's the truth, folks, and it can be proven to be the truth. The fact that Josef Fritzl is guilty in the sense that he did the crimes he's accused of is absolutely 100% irrelevant. The court and society are always trying to pretend whether you did the actions is the big, important, main factor in a criminal case, but it's a relatively unimportant factor. This is because all criminals are tortured victim creations of their society. There is no philosophical argument and no scientific analysis that has ever proven, let alone suggested, that individuals are responsible to society for their behaviour. There's just no rational argument for it, folks. These things are just arcane religious beliefs. Even if some people aren't religious, they tend to hold on to the residue of some of these religious systems. Now let me introduce this concept to you as an analogy. So just stay with me, folks, as insane as this might sound to you, but imagine if you had a very, very angry, nasty, mad scientist, and this mad scientist deliberately created a series of robots and designed them in such a way, with intent, that they would have feelings and emotions and experiences similar to that of a normal human being. He then produced a load of these robots, kept them caged for 10 years and teased them and abused them and sexually assaulted them and all sorts of terrible things to them. He then programmed their computers with insane lies and myths and belief systems like the insane God myth. And by the way, by computers, it doesn't have to be a silicon computer, it can be some kind of new organic brain-o-matic computer. He then one day releases these robots into society. Now, he doesn't know which ones are going to choose to do what. But many of these robots, let's just say 10%, become very violent criminals, and some of them serial killers. Now there would be an outrage and an outcry against the creator of these robots. They would say, you knew how dangerous these robots were, and you made them dangerous by teasing them and abusing them. Otherwise they wouldn't be dangerous and have committed these crimes. And he could say, well, I don't know which ones exactly would have done what. They still chose to do it. But the fact is, folks, the fact is he would still be considered responsible. Same as if you had a tiger and you teased it and abused it and then you released it in a park and it killed someone. The person who did that would be considered a monster. And what monster created Josef Fritzl? Austrian society. You see, Josef Fritzl is a tortured victim creation of Austrian society. He didn't choose to become a rapist and have these problems. Those were foisted upon him by his Austrian society via the family unit mythology and child abuse. Joseph was born innocent and pure, but he was systematically abused and victimized by his mother via the family unit structure. And Austrian society knew full well about this. Many people knew what was being done to Joseph, but it was just accepted and allowed, and no proper reporting or institution exists in Austrian society, even today, or any other society, for legitimately trying to protect children. Had these things been armed robberies, there would have been an instant response. But no, you only had proof that a child slave, Josef Fritzl, was being abused by the family unit structure, and that's accepted by society. Now, so Joseph was the victim himself. Now, just before I go on to the evidence, briefly, we'll just bring up a different file here. This is psychohistorian Lloyd de Moss. And Lloyd is one of the leading experts in psychoanalysis of society and an expert in child abuse. And the main drive and motivation, just as a brief introduction, in all cases of all these rape and abuse and serial killers and so on, is that of the poison container. It's a cycle of abuse, and the extreme childhood abuse and victimisation from society causes people to have a deep desire and a deep need, and a drive, to victimise others. And this is what propelled Josef Fritzl. So we'll just replace the file photo now with the victim. Now, as I said before, Josef Fritzl was extremely abused by his mother, but he was also victimised in other ways by society via brainwashing with myths and societal lies. And the most important two here are, one, the insane God myth, and two, the family unit mythology, and we'll come back to that in a moment. And those things have a different effect on everybody, folks. Everybody's unique, they're an individual, and Joseph isn't some kind of evil monster. He can be understood systematically with research and reason. Now, the thing is, folks, we're going to hear a couple of testimonies now from Josef Fritzl about his childhood. Okay? Now, here we go. She, referring to his mother, never showed me any love. She beat me and kicked me until I was on the floor and bleeding. Josef Fritzl. I felt so weak and humiliated. I never got a kiss from her or even a hug, although I tried very hard to please her. The only thing she did with me was to go to church. Josef Fritzl. And finally, folks, I had a horrible fear from her. She kept insulting me and told me I was Satan, a criminal, a no-good. Josef Fritzl. Now, I'll just adjust the file here. We'll look. Now, there were plenty of witnesses at the time when Josef Fritzl was a child and he was being abused. And this is very important, folks, because had society protected poor Joseph as a child before he'd become this so-called sicko, he would have never been a sicko or a monster in your eyes. All of these events would have been averted had society had any form of sane, rational or benevolent intent towards children instead of the family unit mythology. Okay? Now, she said that many of the witnesses, as you could see from the testimony on your screen, have had directly seen these things, and there were several witnesses. And of course there's the psychological behaviour of Joseph, so there's plenty of reason for Joseph to be protected. Some of them have said, as you can see, his mother beat him fearfully and so on, so he was a very severely abused child. Now, so what happened here, folks, is when Joseph grew up and he had his own family unit structure and the need to abuse children, society granted him societal sponsorship to abuse his biological offspring, the same policy that it used on him. And his younger daughter Elizabeth was mainly the brunt of this. It was fully known at the school she attended to and within the community that Josef Fritzl was abusing his daughter Elizabeth, just as Joseph was abused as a child, and that was known by Austrian society. And this was allowed, and not only that, it was sponsored and helped by society. Now, Joseph only built the dungeon and put her in it at a specific age. Can you guess what this age is? No? 18, folks. The exact age when society said she could leave the home and go away from Joseph. But remember, Joseph, he needed a poison container because of the abuse that he suffered. He was going to lose her, wasn't he? And in his mind, which is forged by society, he couldn't bear that. He'd become reliant on her emotionally and psychologically to function. So he ended up locking her up in the cellar, folks. And of course there are other aspects to this, such as certain societal brainwashings about sex and the sexualization of females and these kinds of things that contributed to that. But even so, folks, as I have shown you, Josef Fritzl is a tortured victim creation of Austrian society. And the fact is, even though society is demonizing Joseph now, it had every chance and opportunity to stop this. It created Joseph, just as we saw in the example with the robots. It just isn't reasonable. The cycle of abuse cannot be stopped and blamed on one man. That is a slippery slope logical fallacy. You've just chosen to stop on Joseph because you want a demon to all victimize and point at and say, he's the bad guy. He's the one that hurts his children, not us. We're a good society that loves our children. But that's not true, folks. The truth is, there are millions of fathers right at this moment abusing and bullying their biological creations with full societal sponsorship via the family unit mythology of their lie-based societies. The only sane, rational position to take, folks, is that Josef Fritzl is a created victim. That doesn't mean the abuse shouldn't be stopped, but to blame Joseph and then subject him to a further abuse and harm is irrational and unjustified. This has been Travis Truman with Series 2 of Truth TV. There will be more videos, folks, on victim creations of society, as well as the specific myths of society. But until then, folks, I'll see you later, because I've got some research to do into society and the forbidden truths.